Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. You've got Howard Greenberg here this morning to guide you into what we're seeing overnight and this morning in the marketplace. Our main man, Big Beat, is out this morning. He might be popping in, we'll see. And I do have Stephen Flanagan, our Forex specialist, coming in at 10 o'clock to join me. So far, a fairly quiet morning. We have had ADP jobless and initial jobless claims come out this morning. Looks like U.S. employment was a little bit softer than anticipated. And the first movement I take a look at, right, we learned this from our man Steve, is to keep an eye on what's going on with the DXY, the dollar. And it has been dropping down since that news here around 8:30. So you can see at 8 o'clock, even it was as high as 109.3. Very, very high for the DXY. Not all the way to the yearly high of 109.6. But, up in that dollar is booming type area. The other problem that we see here for markets today are that, again, 30-year interest rate now at 4.93. 4.93. Now, that has been coming down a little bit, quite honestly, here over the last, since that news broke. It had peaked all the way up here at 4.968, almost 4.97 earlier. And then after jobs data has pulled back, so maybe a little bit of a clink in the armor, so to speak. Do we start to see the Fed talk about rate cuts? That's definitely something we'll be talking about here this morning. We'll talk a little bit about Fed Waller and what he had to say, Chris Waller, and take a look at that. 10-year now, 4.68. Again, it had ballooned to its highest level in a long time here at 4.73. So again, what's going up? Bonds. It's going to be our debt rate goes up significantly. Did hear a lot of talk on CNBC this morning talking about it because it's a big difference, 2% versus 3%, or interest rates that move up, from the lows that we saw here around 4.1 after the rate cuts. Um, excuse me, after the rate cuts, we came all the way down here in September to 3.6 on the 10-year, and now all the way back at 4.68. What that does is exasperate our debt problems as the amount of money we need to pay in debt goes up, from there. So just something to keep in mind on if we look across the indices here and stuff. Bitcoin struggling overnight, actually dropped below the support I thought we'd find. Came all the way down to 94,500 or so, putting it a little bit in no man's land here, there where we have downside, quite honestly, all the way to 91,800 or so. So that is sort of the bottom line that I'll be keeping an eye on here. We'll be looking to pick some up if it does drop back down towards that 92 level here. And what it does lead me to believe is that we are still very much in this range trading area in between 91 and 101. So we have about a $10,000 swing, that we've seen pretty much since, February 6th, February 5th, when we made that move up. So for the last month, we have made, the big move above it here in mid-December when we almost got to 110, and then the pump that we saw over the weekend here, ending on Monday, got us slightly above that level, but quickly retraced in all of those instances. So that's what I'm going to keep an eye on when it comes to Bitcoin right now. Gold is catching up a little bit here, so gold is looking to break above former resistance here. Looks like it broke it here overnight, so could see gold try to make a move back up to the 2,700 level here, and maybe even test 2,720. So gold looking a little bit more positive here than Bitcoin so far today. Same with silver, finally getting back above that 30 level, holding above the 200-day MA. It did get knocked down by the 50-day MA yesterday. We'll see if it can break that resistance currently at about 30.62 there. Nat gas 376. So again, sort of again in no man's land. We loved it down at that $3 level. We definitely wanted to short it at that 450 level. Here at 375 seems to be about a level where it actually should be pretty stable right now. So not much of a move there that I'm seeing. Again, since the news came out here, the employment and ADP number, jobless claims came out, we are seeing a nice little move to the upside. We were slated to open down, but it does look now that we are maybe going to start off in the green, at least to start with here. Um, for me, the key resistance to look here on the SPY is going to be any approach back up to that 599.81 area where we got knocked down the last 2 days. That would be the first spot that I'm looking at here as our key resistance here today on any kind of strength. If today's, economic data keeps us moving, what I will warn you is what we have seen is these data get some quick moves one way or the other, and then they quickly dissipate. So keep an eye on that today. We do see NASDAQ now again also slated to open just up here. There it did get rejected already twice here at yesterday's resistance at that 515.88. So again, 515.88, the first level I'm looking at here on QQQ. Interesting to see. I don't know if I'd say interesting, but a little bit of a paradox in that, we're going to talk when we go through today's movers a little bit about Shell and Exxon. And we're going to talk because their CEOs came out yesterday and both sort of downgraded their forecasts for the upcoming sort of quarter. And with that being said, WTI almost at 74 here, breaking two highs again, man. That we haven't seen since October. So WTI is breaking to the upside a little bit here, above 74. Gonna approaching that 200-day MA at 75.43. I think it could be interested at maybe a short around that 75.43 area. That's what I'm sort of looking at there. We talked about treasuries already. When it comes to the Spider Select Funds, we know there are 11 sectors that make up the SPY right now, and 9 of them opening or look to open on the downside. The only two bucking the trend are XLK, which is the technology sector, and I will point out that that got beat up pretty hard yesterday. Was the sector, I believe, down the most yesterday at down 2.01%. So that, a little bit of a bounce relief here. And then XLV, which is the healthcare sector, and that's sort of being buoyed, quite honestly, by Moderna and some of the other healthcare companies involved in vaccines related to the bird flu, and also some more decent news out of Novo Nordisk on some of their weight loss drugs. So I think those tend to be what's buoying those up. When we take a look at that overnight, if we take a look at the European Stock Exchange, they have been sort of in free fall here today. They are down about half a point there. They did bounce up slightly here around 7 a.m., but look to be hitting resistance. With that being said, the Shanghai is up slightly today. Nikkei pretty flat. So Japan and China, Asian markets pretty flat. European market down overnight, so we'll see how that plays out. I talked to you a little bit about DXY. Dollar really booming here, back up at 109, so very strong dollar here. Very high interest rates here tend to, lead us to, weakness in the stock market, right? Weakness in equities. And you would think that with the dollar going up so much that you'd see a little bit more weakness in gold the way you are in Bitcoin, but you're not. So there is a little bit of a flight there still to the gold side. I don't talk much, especially if I'm by myself, about politics, but Trump was all over the place yesterday. I guess we're taking over Greenland, Canada, and Panama now, and the Gulf of Mexico. Well, excuse me, the Gulf of America. So a lot on his plate there. Hopefully he'll start to come back down and worry about the things that matter. And get us back on track that way. What else was I looking at today so far? Mag 7, NVIDIA. Oh, so Steve and I are both in NVIDIA positions here. I did get my cost down to 142.55. I did not get my 140 fill when it bounced off that 140.01. I put in a market order and got filled. So my I am in at 142 55 here. Steve's in a little bit higher there. I'm not sure his, but that is more of a swing trade. I will say quantum chips, quantum computing, when we get through today's stuff, getting hit pretty hard. We'll talk more about that. Let's stay with the mag here. Apple slated up to open up a little bit on the downside here. Didn't see a huge amount of Apple news overnight. Microsoft is up slightly. Google had a real good day um, early yesterday, then retraced as we see, but was the best performing of the mag. It is down this morning. Amazon down. Meta is pretty flat there. Big news on Meta, of course, is that they are going sort of back to their roots, to be quite honest with you. Those that don't know, Zuckerberg is fairly big libertarian in general, and didn't really, or at least fought moderation for a long time, then seemed to get on board and be one of the leaders in the area. They are now going to follow what Twitter does, or X, and take away those fact checking and use community sort of guidelines, or whatever you want to say there on it. Tesla continuing to get hit here, and Netflix is up slightly. On the crypto front, as I mentioned, Bitcoin hit pretty hard here last night. And outside of that, all the alts sort of dropped in unison. The only one holding up a little bit better, again, XRP holding up. It is up here this morning. Part of the news there, Brad Glaringhouse, who is their CEO, so take this from that, came on and talked about where their market cap is, and where he felt the value of the XRP and all of their technology and stuff was, and that it was worth 10 times more than the current market cap of XRP. Does seem to be moving the market again, as most of the crypto is down somewhere between 2 to 5%. It is actually up 2.48%. Another thing I keep an eye on closely is USDT dominance, or how much stable coins there are out in the market. And with yesterday's downfall in the price of Bitcoin, we see that is moved up to 1.73. So what that means to me is they didn't pull all the way out of crypto. They left it in stable coins right now. Much easier to trade back into Bitcoin or other crypto in that case. So one to keep an eye on. I will mention Doge is getting, as those that have been watching, I made a play on Doge. The trade's still actually right here. Last week, it is coming back towards that area. I would be looking to probably reacquire it, sort of rinse and repeat here on a move down towards that 30 cents level. I'd like to see it get down. I'd be interested even at 32 cents here for a run back up to 40. And again, a lot of that based upon the fact that we're just going to see tweets from Musk. We've seen the talk of Doge being, utilized as a payment service on Twitter, where we've already seen them developing wallets and doing things that can be seen in their GitHub that lead people to believe that they are closer to having the ability to pay your creators, the people that you follow, or tip them using crypto, and that Doge would be the way to do that. So, that's to keep an eye on. And I will point out that, the US dollar, when we say it's high, it's approaching a 55-year high. So, keep that in mind, that if we break that 109.6 area, we get into an area we haven't seen in over 55 years. So do keep that in mind. NVIDIA, I talked about. The biggest takeaway I have there that was sort of interesting from yesterday, here we go, is that, and I do recommend take a look at it. You can find it on probably CNBC. I know that Wall Street Journal, their group of websites, I think it was Marketplaces, where I linked into it from. I know Barron's has it also. You can take a look at the question and answer that Jensen Huang had yesterday with analysts at the CES, the Consumer Electronics Show. Really good stuff. You get a lot more insight But one of the takeaways that has, and if we go to today's movers and shakers, you will see that Rigetti down almost 28% here. QBTS, which is D Wave Quantum, down 31%. IONQ, which is IONQ, down 18%. A lot of the absolute monsters in the lately in the world of quantum computer hit, and part of that was because he came out and basically said that we are up to 15 years away from quantum computers really taking a hold. And I think that really shocked the market. And I'm trying to find his exact quote here. Here it is. It says, if you kind of said 15 years for very useful quantum computers, that'd probably be on the early side. If you said 30, you'd probably be on the late side. And that has all of sort of those stumbling here in the pre-market hours. I don't bring it up to say that you should sell. What I bring up here is those of you that feel you missed some of these names, you could get a chance here today or, in the near future to acquire them. But I also want to point out that very similar to the cannabis industry, the space industry, and other speculative markets where there so far isn't a lot of revenue, positive revenue, right? EPS to back some of these companies, that you really want to be trading them probably more than holding them. When I say that is take your profit, rinse and repeat. Don't be afraid to do it. Don't get, if you rode Rigetti from 1 to 22, hopefully you took some profit in there already. If you're looking to get back in, look for these pullbacks like this. You're going to see news cycles that are going to change the market dramatically. This would be a perfect example of that. You're going to see them to both sides, up and down. Take profits on the up. Maybe add to your holdings on those drops down. But play that market. Keep money on the sidelines to do that. That's what I just want to stress. Is again, I think that is Rigetti going to be worth more than 4.46 billion, in a year from now? Especially if you believe Big Beat's estimation that Nvidia could be a $5 trillion company by October, I believe he said. Then these are going to follow in suit, but they are going to take their time. There's going to be their ups and downs, those that have been invested early in those cannabis stocks, like I said, and these have seen these jumps up and down from that. So keep that in mind. Stocks moving today. I mean, I've been really impressed about what Micron has done here. Over the last couple of days, it has really just taken off from 84 here, went as high as 107 before pulling back. But Micron continuing to move up in the pre-market hours. We talked a little bit about Nvidia. I will say most of the stuff that I listen to from Jensen Huang has me excited about their long-term outlooks. So I am not worried at all about my position there. It is a little bit underwater right now, but I'm looking for a return here more towards that 152, 153 level. Over the next days or a week. On the another one that just continues to get beat up here, Palantir, huh? Broke below that spot that I said I was looking at 7207 as its first level of key support, and you now really have to start looking at 6620. So again, anybody that said, man, I really want to be in that cybersecurity area. I want a piece of one of the largest defense contractors there is. I got to think it's starting to look a little attractive here for a play on Palantir. Again, and with the market the way it is right now, I do feel that we still have more downside. As much as it feels like we've been beat up to start the year or to end the year, and all that. If we do look at QQQ, we are not yesterday we weren't far from the 52-week high, the all-time high. So we're still up here. We're still up here. It's led mostly by that Mag 7, we know. So it's tough on an Nvidia, which has been leading that way. To say that's where I'm going to follow, but it's also tough to doubt with everything that they announced this week, with everything that they showed, with how they're going to support the autonomous driving community, how they're going to, what my biggest takeaway from Nvidia's, or from the CES in general, is that they don't want to be a one-trick pony, and that they've already been investing, and they want to be the answer to all of your chip answers. We know that they use Micron chips a lot right now as a partner to do some of their stuff. They're looking to take that all pretty much in-house. So that's why I am still very bullish on Nvidia. MicroStrategy continuing to get hit with Bitcoin getting hit. Not a surprise there at all. Did break below that 50-day MA. Again, you can see the areas that I'm looking at here. I get interested when it gets back below 300, quite honestly, for another play there. So again, looking at MicroStrategy on any kind of pullback towards that 300 level for myself. We talked yesterday, Steve and I, a little bit about what's going on in the world of food, right? And some of the problems there. Should have kept. Yeah, Zora, like we said, you don't want to don't chase, keep your convictions and your thesis is there. Don't be too reactive to this market. Hey, good morning, Ron. Hope all is well, my friend. But good earnings report out of Cal-Maine Foods. Those that don't know, Cal-Maine is, if not the largest egg producer here in the U.S., one of them. They are a major player in my area here. And again, a nice move up as they talked about the fact that demand number one for eggs is still there, which makes sense. It's one of the cheaper proteins that that are out there and available. And that they have not seen as much problems from the bird flu as expected. And it wasn't that they haven't seen the problems from the bird flu, but that, again, they're not having to recall eggs, that there isn't been any proven transmission through eggs. So that is working up in their benefit. A sidetrack, though, from that earnings report is they did talk about how the U.S. dairy herds have been hit by the virus also, and that they are struggling there. So, again, the only benefit we have there is that the demand for milk continues to plummet downward as more people use oat milk, soy milk, and others. You got a couple others in there that just came in, Zora, but yeah, usually they come in around 9:30 as the markets open. And you also can't see, Zora, the ones that are watching directly on our platform. There you go. What's going on, Mr. Flanagan? How are you doing, sir? 1095, 1096. Are we going to hit that 55-year high here this morning? We'll save that for a half hour or so. But that's my first question I'm going to have for you this morning. I was reading close to a 55-year high on the DXY. Other stocks moving so far this morning in the positive level, Maple Bear, and part of that is that they got an upgrade moving to the mid-cap 400 index, something I wasn't that familiar about, quite honestly, but that is moving that in the upward position here. Also saw XL Service Holdings moving up here on top. They just had their CEO was at the CES also talking about their generative AI services. So up about 4% on that news here this morning. Nice little move up. On the downside, like I said, quantum computing. If you've been waiting for a pullback in that quantum computing set, now might be the time. But again, I want to be a trader of quantum computing. I do not want to be a long-time purchaser at this point. We still got too much, as the CEO of NVIDIA said yesterday. He said, if you think quantum computers will be ready in 15 years, you're a little early. 30 years, you're a little late. So that to me says 20 years. And we've seen that in the cannabis industry and a lot of other space, right? Those of us that have been in both space, the actual ticker, and some of those other ones, ASTS and others, have seen. You get a nice pump on news, but they are still a far away from profitability so far. We are about 5 minutes from opening up. I do want to point out, I think it happened towards the end yesterday, and a lot of you might have been gone already. We did check in. We did a little bit of what we call a channel check here at Quasar Markets. We checked in with our man, Paul Valeja, to see what was going on in the world of hiring and so forth. He is the CEO of Capital Hire, one of the larger executive search firms here in the U.S., because that jobs report said that there was, basically a lot of job openings that had come in the last week or so, and that they were in sort of the, that executive level and mid level. And he said he's not seeing that at all. So I did want to point that out, that it looks like that was some backward, sort of revisionist history of what they were seeing in November versus what they are seeing currently there. So I will expect to see those type of news sort of hit across some of the other news channels here in the upcoming days. Tesla continuing to get hit, it got its second downgrade. So Tesla, which hadn't seen a downgrade in a long time, 2 in 2 days here. Analysts pointing out that, again, just not selling enough cars yet. So Tesla getting hit, although it has bounced back this morning. But here at that 395 area. Moderna, we talked a little bit about yesterday, still getting a little bit of upward movement on the notification that they are seeing positive results with their bird flu vaccine. So again, not to be alarmist there, but that is moving in the positive direction. And again, I mentioned a couple of the gas and oil companies came out overnight or yesterday. Shell and Exxon and ExxonMobil warned that there will be lower oil prices and tighter refining margins that will weigh on their earnings. Carvana is inching up. That is a good one, Ron. We talked about that one after they got their first upgrade yesterday since the Heidenberg report. And I don't know if you were here when I mentioned it yesterday. Oh, that's not the right one, Ron. They also announced on Monday that Ally, which is the major, or their mostly buys all of their loans, that Ally had agreed to the contract for this year. So that had been one of the biggest points that had been brought up in the Hindenburg report, was that they were too reliant on Ally. But that fear is a little bit alleviated by the fact that Ally did sign that contract. So you sort of punted that issue down the boat for at least another year. So I do think Carvana is somewhat interesting here. You can see it bounced in that same spot that we had seen it stick it at in mid-October, bounced above it. I'd like to see it retest that personally. I'd like to see this move up, retest that area at 190, and then I think it'd be very interesting there if we can get a retest and a hold of support here. If I do a little bit of charting, and we'll make that a little bit bigger for us. You can see we had resistance in this area, like I said, right around 188 to 190, that it struggled to break here for about 10, 11 days in early October. And then it finally broke through it. Then it gapped up, as we know, after its earnings. And now it has retraced all the way there back on Friday, bounced up, pulling back a little bit. So what I'd like to see is, if we see a little bit of weakness in the market today, Ron, retest of that 188, 190 area, for a higher low leading to the higher highs. That's what I'd be looking at on the daily chart on Carvana. I do wonder how they're, and just what I've seen and read about cars right now, I also wonder, will they start to see a drawdown in the amount of sales? And what I mean there is, there's been more and more talk, right, about how U.S. car companies and the European car companies are discounting. I've seen a lot of rates in that 2%. Leasing has gotten pretty attractive for a lot of these cars, and inventories are up at dealerships. So things that are sort of bad for dealership owners in could be good for the consumer, right? You might see a move back to more new cars versus used cars. So we'll see how that plays out. It also could lower the cost of used cars for Carvana, and that could be a benefit. So there's a lot. I guess I don't help you there. We are open. I just talked both sides of that trade right there. We are down about 300 right now on the opening tick. Advanced decline opening up. Wow, down about 3,000 again today. So very similar area to what we saw yesterday. Um, Down about 3,000 on the advanced decline. One thing that has been moving up over the last few days is the VIX. Now at 1875. Again, we talked about it, back here on beginning of the week and end of last week and was at $15, right? So don't be looking to buy the VIX now. Buy the VIX when you don't need it as protection. We do see we are opening up to the downside, so we did see a little bit of a sell-off here right off the bat. We are seeing a pretty big sell-off here on SPY to start it off. We were slightly up, now down about 1/10 of a percentage point. QQQ getting hit even a little harder here, down about 0.15. Bitcoin struggling to hold that 95 level here. If it breaks below 95, you've got some pretty significant downside towards that 92 area, quite frankly, down there. And as I mentioned earlier, it does look like we are still in the trading zone between that 91.5 and 101.5 that we've really been in since, the election, November 21st. We made that one breakout to the all-time highs at 110, and then over the weekend and into Monday, we made that jump above it. But in general, struggling to stay above there. So for me, I think we are in a trading range between that 92 and 102 area, until I see a definitive move one way or other, through that. So that's what I'll be trading on Bitcoin right now, as opposed to my hold position, which is always a hold position. So with that being said, gas, like we talked about, kind of high here. I'm very interested maybe on a short on gas if we get up towards that 75 area here, the 200-day MA. Again, the only thing that keeps me there is, as Steve mentioned, the SPR has been drained down a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised, though, to see Biden wind that down all the way and not buy any. Hey, guys, are you having a hard time hearing me? Ron said he's having a hard time hearing me. I do see volume a little low, but not significantly. Let's see if that's any better, Ron. When I turn my head, when I'm alone, I'm usually looking off to the right as opposed to at Steve. So it does change where I should put my mic here. So let's see if we move this over. I do see the volume is a little low compared to yesterday's. One of these days I'll figure out why this thing moves on me. Steve, you're getting my volume okay? So, Marana, might be you, but I am moving it up a little bit here to accommodate. And I think it's probably better now because I'm looking directly at my mic as I speak. So sometimes it's just me moving my head too fast. I notice that. That's why Steve goes in and out. When those of us that are, you know, I'm an Italian at heart, I guess. I talk with my hands in my face moving around. It is not great for the mic that I have here. But hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Um, I think I'm saying, I like gas as a short at that 75 level. I do, I think there. Let's see what's going on with the Mag 7 here on open. Nvidia up almost back to 142 here. So after dropping down, we'll see. As I said, for me, I'm holding that till I get back to the 150, 152 area. Personally, I'm in at that 142.55. So I'm looking for about a $10 move there, and I'm willing to wait a month or so to see that play its way out. Tesla getting a little bit of love here. So again, after seeing the drop yesterday of almost 4% over those 2 days, it is moving back up here. It did get another downgrade. Not selling enough cars. Let's see what's going on with today's movers and shakers. Micron moving to the downside. Palantir continuing to drop here, so that could get close. Again, I've mentioned I like Palantir towards this 200-day MA for sure as a longer term buy. Also, my neck hurts. You are right there, Ron. I do. Uh, MSTR, I was hoping would pull back towards that 300 level here to get an entry there. Nothing really there I'm seeing. I just can't short that either. The one I would tell you, the one that gets interesting to short here is actually Calm, is that Cal Maine Foods. I gave you the good news about what's going on with egg production. But what I do know also is a lot of that production is done here where I live, and we have snow. We have more snow coming, and that snow is not expected to melt until like mid-February at this point, and that makes it extremely expensive for crops, or not crops, but our food sources, because that means they can't let the chickens outside as much. They have to give them outside fed grain or inside fed grain. The same with cows. So it'll be an interesting one here. If we get a move up towards this 114, again, I could look to short Cal Maine on the downside here. Seeing those quantum computing stocks continuing to get hit here this morning, continuing to drop to lows. QBTS now down below $6 here. Rigetti down around 1170. So we got down to 1160. Is moving back up here. But we are seeing more of a sell-off here. Tick is still negative about 227. Seeing some of our first halts here, ATHE. If you do look on my solo screen here, I do keep the halts from Quasar Markets down on the right-hand side. So if you want to know what is being halted in the market, look down on the right-hand side of the screen, and you will see that ATHE was halted here, but that's halted to the downside. Let's take a quick look. NRXP is another halt. NRXP halted here. A pharmaceutical company also to the downside. Not seeing much halt to the upside. It is resetting here, which usually means there is a new halt affecting the market. So we'll keep our eye on that. Biggest movers to the upside so far, SANA, one that has been pumping all morning here. Up, and again, a biotech up about 300% now. Wow. 287. It was up over 300%. So big biotech mover here. Silo, another one up tremendously here. SILO. Silo Pharmacy. So biotech's getting some love here. This one's actually pumping as we talk. This could be one, could be in play here. Let's keep an eye here. 302. Man, I wish I had caught this more in that $2 level. It's coming off a halt, moving up here, 326. So you're getting a run here. 52-week highs, 520 is 450. So you got room that it could move here. It is definitely trying to run. Gold holding above 2650 here. Bitcoin bounced off that 95.1, did move back up a little bit here. Take a look here quickly at my tweet deck, see what's going on in the world of Twitter. What are they talking about? Seeing a little bit of talk about the downside on Palantir. Their move to the downside. Winter weather lifts U.S. natural gas futures. Again, weather. That's what I was saying when it comes to the food sources. Your price of beef, your price of chickens and pork is going to go up because here in the Midwest and across most of the country, seeing colder weather, harder for the animals to feed. They need more food the colder it gets. So, that's interesting. You see, Meta is trialing eBay listings on Facebook Marketplace following an EU antitrust pressure. That's interesting. I think that would be good for both companies, quite frankly, if you could have your eBay stuff come right across there. Oh, I did want to bring this one up. I talked a few months ago about one of the European companies that I was interested in. Got hit a little bit here overnight. Flutter Entertainment. Flutter is the parent company of FanDuel, And I thought a couple of interesting things, and it already is moving up. Damn, this morning. Um, this is one where I like to buy the dip here because it closed the. It's basically it closed the gap. Flutter, which is the parent company of FanDuel, talked about how this has been a painful NFL season for gambling, for the casinos, because favorites have won most of the time. And it's funny because in the old days, um, I had some family friends that were in the not so regulated casino markets, otherwise known as bookmaking. And the goal was always in the old days to have the money sort of equal out. You wanted both sides to be bet equally, and then they were happy to take that 5 or 10% vig, as it's called, that they get on the losses. So, but that's changed, and they now actually take sides, and they have all kinds of algorithms that they use. And it talked about that just one game this year, um, which was the Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers, that turned in the last minute, cost FanDuel $205 million, just from that game. So affecting their things. But again, FanDuel and gambling in the U.S., in my opinion, is only going to increase. We see it getting ingrained more and more. It is not something I am a huge participant in, but I see that the generation that's younger than us, or younger than me, is, and they love the all of these things that FanDuel and DraftKings, whether you can gamble on fantasy, you can gamble on players, you can do these crazy parlays. And I just tell you, it is absolutely a huge part of the younger generation. And I really see it, or really saw it, in one of the restaurants that I'm involved in DC, where when they legalized gambling, they gave licenses to about 20 restaurants to have these terminals within the bars themselves, these sports bars, where they could do all these bets right there. It's like having a little hub. It looks like an ATM. It's directly linked to the the lottery system in DC. And um, yeah, that is why they're moving. They've gone to a different method. And that's why spreads are so different. Different companies take different positions. And and it's also getting moved by these parlays, which I would be the equivalent of zero DTEs. But again, to get off subject a little bit, or back on subject, I do think Flutter is an interesting buy at this position. European-based company. We know that they've been beaten down. They do a lot of business though here in the U.S. And they are very insulated, in my opinion, more so than the U.S.-based companies when it comes to gambling. And what I mean there is that they are a huge player. They are the dominant player in Europe. So soccer and cricket and sort of the things that no one here in the U.S. bets on, are heavily bet through Flutter and through their William Hill and other stuff that they own overseas. So it is one, not William Hill. William Hill is its own company, sorry, but they're European and Irish based companies. So one I'm interested in here is Flutter Entertainment. So definitely want to keep an eye on Tick. Wow, it's just continuing to drop to the downside. QQQ now down almost 0.2 of a percentage. SPY is down 0.2 of a percentage. Bitcoin still struggling right at that 95,100 level. Gold sitting at that 2650 area, and silver has regained 30. We'll talk more with Mr. Flanagan here in a few minutes. DXY, though, back up over 109, trying to break it. Man, I got to know what happens if we break that 109.55 area. Do we really go to 55-year highs, and how high is high? That's the question we all need to know. And the same thing, look at these Fed rates, 9.45, 4.945. Wow, did I just turn dyslexic there? Man, 4.945, and it hit a high of 4 point almost 97 here. Um, yeah, I mean, that's telling you everything, right? Dollar's that high, rates are that high, equity's starting to drop down. I am surprised that gold and Bitcoin are holding up this well, quite honestly, based on, those factors and the way that they continue to be played up across mainstream media there. So I just saw something come across. So seeing a little bit talk, we talked about cocoa and being one of the commodities. Cocoa, coffee, and orange juice were the three commodities that went up the most last year. They did drop about 4.8% here. Cocoa, seen an article in Bloomberg. I had cocoa, I thought, yeah, right here, down 6.45%. So cocoa is starting to pull back. Here. So that's interesting. They're talking about part of it being because of a move um, by the ICE, or the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, to tame volatility. So we'll keep an eye on that and what it does for cocoa. I think it's funny seeing CNBC now covering what your options are to put cryptocurrency into 401k plans, something that I've been talking about for years, those that were at Prosper Trading. We will check that. That was from, Steve, I'll tell you, that came out of Wall Street Journal. Um, that came from, I'll show you the article here. I was surprised by that comment myself. Where did I see that? Hold it 1 second here. Let me grab that here. It was. Way to go on me. Hold it 1 second. Maybe I made that completely up, but I would have made that number up because I wouldn't have. I definitely had it here. Hold it 1 second. Feds Waller. Was it this one? 1 second. I guess I could just look at it. That would also work. If it would work for me. Yeah, nowhere close. 160. Not even close. Yeah, I don't know what I read. That's why we have you here, Mr. Flanagan. Yeah, I don't know what the hell it was saying. It definitely gave me 55. I swear it came from this article that is now not on the live Wall Street Journal article. Let me look back at this. Now I got it now. It had that. Stocks, there's that. Yeah, I definitely must have made that up. I'm checking one last place. Tick still negative here, minus 200. QQQ is bouncing back up, though. So we are starting to see some strength come back here a little bit. Trying. 514.76. So we're right about the midpoint so far of the trading there. Now, where was this? What's this? This would be the other place it would have been.
Yeah, it came from Market Watch. It says U.S. dollar is at 55-year high in price to perfection, says Bank of America. So just definitely a very wrong headline here. I knew I read it off of somewhere. Yeah, they're just trying to trick me out here. I don't know why. We will talk about that, Mr. Flanagan, why they're trying to give me false information here at Market Watch. I knew I read it somewhere. We are now positive on QQQ here, and we challenge that 515.88. So that is the key spot I'm watching here. 515.88 is definitely the spot to keep an eye on here. See if we can break through it. So far, it has rejected us pretty firmly on the short term. We'll say I noticed also was looking at Costco. As you guys know, that's one of the companies that I am a fan of. Steve has predicted it for to make a run to 1,000 this year. Was noticing a little bit here of it getting back towards a good spot. I was hoping to get it back at that, 880 area. It didn't pull all the way back here, so Costco looking to try to move back up here. We'll see what we get out of that. Micron now giving up most of the gains from yesterday. Hey, look at that. Nvidia. I am back at profit on Nvidia here. Although, as I said, I am looking for more for a run up towards that 152 area. Tesla giving back some of its morning gains. Continuing to see a drop by those quantum computer companies. So those, like I said, that are looking to pick up their QBTS now down 43% here, continuing to set lows of the day. 525 now the new low of the day there. Rigetti also 960 was the low of the day there. It is rebounded a little bit from that spot. Uh, mRNA, so Moderna now, after having the big move up over the last day and a half or so, now starting to retrace those right here at 9:30. It pulled back now down 5% on the day. Again, we're seeing those gas companies, Shell and Exxon, getting hit. Chips overall pretty much to the downside outside of Broadcom, Nvidia, and ARM in the big companies. eBay on that news with Facebook up 11.86% here. So seeing a nice move up by eBay here on the news that Facebook Marketplace is going to allow eBay listings to be done there through an integration. So that's a pretty good move there to see. Banks continuing to be under fire here. JP Morgan, the only bank I see up. Foreign banks again. HSBC, SMFG, which is a Japanese bank. So we do see Bank of Montreal. So we're seeing a move up by foreign banks. U.S. banks getting hit here also. And again, restaurants getting hit pretty hard, except for Shake Shack. Shake Shack up about 1.65% today. All the others seem to be pulling back here. So again, right now we are just seeing a move to the downside. SPY now down 0.3 of a percentage point. QQQ back 0.3. So again, any kind of upward movement is being sold off still. So we're still seeing sell-offs across the market here. See anything else? Did want to talk a little bit about, as I mentioned, Fed Waller came out and, he's one that is backing more rate cuts. He thinks, I thought it was interesting too. He thinks that, or came out and said, I wonder if he's trying to position himself maybe to take Powell's job after his term is up, as he said that he doesn't believe the tariffs are going to cause the rise to inflation that others are calling for. So I thought that was a little interesting too. He said tariffs are taxes on imports, and most economists think they will result in higher prices on American consumers. While it didn't disagree, but said that price rises will not have a significant or persistent effect on inflation, they are unlikely to affect my view of appropriate monetary policy. So he's saying that the tariffs won't affect the way that the Fed speaks. I think that is a little bit foolish, right? Um, so we'll see what happens there. And they also pointed out that he did point out that, it is a big difference between 2.4, 2.5%, and 2% when it comes to inflation because of the drawdown it causes on our debt and so forth. Market doesn't seem to be able to pick a direction so far. Been pretty choppy this morning, but staying pretty much in that mid range here on QQQ around 514.25, 514.50. Same thing on SPY. While it's gone up and down, it's pretty much been in this 587, 588 area for most of the day. So we're not seeing a huge movement there. Same thing, Bitcoin 95, 250. So right where we were about an hour ago seems to be where we are now. So we are seeing, some choppiness, but not really a clear direction on much. Even treasuries, a little bit of, choppiness without a real direction one way or the other since 9:30. Okay, give me 1 second here. We should have Mr. Flanagan ready to go in a second. I see him coming in. Get him ready so he can see what's going on here. And okay, let me grab my headphones here so he can hear me. And we should have him ready to go in a few seconds here. Okay, give me 1 second. Here we should have Mr. Flanagan ready to go in a second. I see him coming in. Get him ready so he can see what's going on. Okay, we will transition over. And Mr. Flanagan, how are you doing today, my friend? Can you hear me, Stephen?
I'm not hearing you.
Ah, I see why. There's nothing set
Let me
there.
grab my headphones here so he can hear
Can
me.
you hear me now there, Stephen?
Yes, I can.
How are you doing today, Mr. Flanagan?
I'm doing just fine, Howard.
Why would
Wow,
Market Watch give me that false headline?
I don't know. That's a bad headline. When I heard you say that, I was like, wait a second. I just,
It wasn't even
I,
close. I just
I just,
assumed that, when you see a headline that says Bank of America says 55-year high and that's where it should be, that they would be at least somewhere near correct. But as luckily, that's why we have experts like yourself around.
well, when you said that where the source was, I began to question them. But regardless, I've been trading, the currencies for 45 plus years now, and I was scratching my head going, wait a second, I remember it being a lot higher.
Yeah, well, those 160s must have been a little different, huh?
Well, it was 164.75 in February of 85, and that was, a couple of years after I started trading.
Yeah.
It was, of course, the Plaza Accord that the central banks initiated to knock it down, and that kind of highlights where I would like to go today. Is we're at this point right now where we've had 30 plus years of stability engineered by the central banks of the world by converging interest rates and kind of making sure in their G7 statements all the time that currencies reflect fundamentals. Well, where are fundamentals today? We've talked about this. The tectonic plates that are underneath of the financial system are now beginning to shift and crack, and the stability is showing signs of fading. And that be, look at the 10-year rate in the United States versus the rates in China. We're going in completely opposite directions. And this to me signifies something's got to give.
Yeah, I mean, you would expect it, but I guess my question is, what breaks first? I mean, that's the question here: is how high can the dollar go? How high can these rates go before we see a bigger black swan event?
Well, in a free functioning market, which we like to believe we're in, at some point the pressure gets released in the free floating markets, namely FX. The dollar will get to a level at some point where interest rates no longer can go higher because the high value of the dollar will force interest rates
It's
down.
down, right? So it
So I would have to argue today, and I know many of my friends out there don't want to hear it, but that the bond market vigilantes are wrong.
Right. No, I get you. I'd be grabbing these rates while I can, um, because they have to come down, right? I mean, it almost, what I'm getting to is these rates are almost starting to act like a cryptocurrency or a tech stock, that. And what I've learned is it doesn't matter, look at Palantir, look at MicroStrategy, look at Nvidia, any of these things that go up like this, they come back down like this.
And you're in my wheelhouse now because what is one of the last of the markets to be computerized or electronified? The bond market.
Right.
This has been a market that the banks, the manual voice desks have control. Today, actually, over the last few years, but more so in today, what we're seeing is an electronic market at play, and that is they're pushing rates higher, but they're waiting for a new piece of data. And guess what happens on Friday? Payrolls.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just is. It is scary, and it shows you the other part, like we've talked about these reactions. You look at these quantum stocks down 45% today because, the Nvidia CEO said his opinion. That scares me. Markets are so far on edge right now for data, and it affects the market so much. It really it makes it hard. Like I said, like you can't look at those things that go up like that and say I'm going to hold forever. You have to
Right.
be selling into these
And
spikes.
this underscores my money moves first, and that is watch the value of the dollar. The value of the dollar is telling you there is a demand for money to be in the United States, whether it's a high interest rate, but more likely, look at the investments that keep getting announced by the president elect. Right? You had SoftBank at 100+ billion, and then you had the gentleman out of Dubai yesterday talking 5 billion or up to 20 billion in data centers. Money is moving to the U.S. These moves in the stock markets and things are merely gyrations of an electronic world. When things get overdone, they self correct immediately. But the longer term step back macro view is the US markets are the place to be.
Yeah.
And I think
Does
the
that change your thesis about Asia at all? Between, like you said, these bond rates or the interest rates in China versus where we are right now?
well, as I underscore, I still like Japan. That's
Okay.
my number one spot. Number two was China because the headlines are all over about China entering
Stimulus.
a deflationary cycle. Well, we've talked about this a month or so ago that China was following in the footsteps of Japan.
Right.
But Japan has learned a 20 to 30-year lesson of how to fight deflation. Keep in mind, Japanese interest rates are 0.25%. Throughout this entire tightening cycle in the world, Japan has only tightened by
Right.
0.15.
Yeah,
So
no, I mean that it makes sense, and you know what I look at too is, and you see it too. I'm seeing, you know, when the dollar takes off, these foreign banks seem to pick up too.
that's right. And I'm watching China because I do believe you will see a very bold move on China's part in the next few weeks. They are going to step in with a very large stimulus package. And I do think that China will aggressively combat this deflationary cycle that is beginning to permeate marketplaces over there. So, my question right now is, who is driving the market? We've highlighted how our central banks have fallen so behind in becoming data dependent. Well, everybody reacted to a figure that came out yesterday for November, the jolts.
Yeah,
That was
that's what we said that yesterday on air, Steve and I. That, you know, you're looking at a number that 2 months, because we talked about it. You know, we're lucky to have, and part of our Quasar family, the CEO of Capital Hire, which is one of the biggest, you know, employment services in the country, especially when it comes to executive. And I said, hey, I immediately sent it to him as soon as I saw the numbers. Hey, are you seeing this? And in what sectors? Because he had warned us that some of these numbers were looking better, but that it was really a rehire in hospitality that wasn't going to be maintained. It's holiday hiring for restaurants and hotels and the amusement parks and all those things, and it was going to disappear. And he was quick to respond back. Yeah, I'm not seeing it at that mid
Yeah,
manager level or above where it's needed.
right. The numbers are showing a softening of labor, and that is a concern of the Fed. You saw Wallow already come out and put back on the table interest
Cuts.
rate cuts in
Yeah.
2025. So, they're going to watch that carefully. So Friday, I highlight that because if this number comes in soft, where's the bond market going to go? It's gone completely in the wrong direction, and I get it. It's a warning sign of a more larger term, longer term macro issue, and that is debt in the industrialized world. But that's not going to crack and play out today, but it is something on a longer range, 2 to 3, 4 years, that we've got to be concerned about. So, bringing it back, who's driving this car right now? Is it the chorus of fund managers throughout the world warning that they may go to 5% in the 10-year? Or is it the Fed and the central banks? Our central banks have fallen behind. There is no such thing as forward guidance anymore.
No,
If the
none.
Fed wanted to change the situation, they'd go in and start buying the bonds and quickly turn the
And
situation
they're not a
around.
buyer right now at all. From what
Exactly.
I've seen, you know, that's the problem is, you know, we've got a lot of issuance coming up this year. I think I saw the number. It's like $7.8 trillion. You know, of bonds just to pay our debt down, you know, not to pay it down, but to service our debt over the next 12 months. And if Japan's not a buyer, if China's not a buyer, you know, and we're not a buyer, who is?
And this is the fundamental flaw of, remember, this tool has never been used before, quantitative tightening. Just like quantitative easing was
Right.
never ever used in history, quantitative tightening is now at work. And now you're seeing what's happening. It's creating these artificial moves. And the Fed has got to start getting a handle and control of its economy. People are saying, yay, bravo, we avoided a recession and we've made a soft landing. Are you kidding? They're sitting there right now spitting spitballs on the wall and hoping all this is working instead of getting out and guiding and taking firm hold of their job, monetary policy.
Yeah, it seems like we're playing catch up. We're never getting ahead, and we're just we continue to kick the can further, but that can keep getting bigger and heavier, and
That's
eventually
right.
we won't be able to kick it anymore. It becomes a
Right.
boulder instead of a can.
Let's look at the backdrop of the world. Germany factory orders have
Terrible.
dropped the most in 3 months. You've got French consumer confidence, cratering here. You've got Germany having new elections. You've got France with a very unstable government, the core of Europe. You've got the UK where everything is unraveling after that last election. And
Yeah.
Canada, you've got a new prime
Mayhem.
minister, probably.
Yeah.
So you've got to look at what the signs are saying, what the dollar index is telling us is money's moving into the US. Now, stocks are coming off today. They may come off more. We can self correct. But overall, think about it. Money's moving to the US because it wants to be invested here. So these opportunities should be, the viewers should look at these things as opportunities of where to get into the market on outsized moves in the opposite direction. And that would be a
Absolutely.
downside.
Like I said, on the quantum computing right now, down 45% today. But meanwhile, again, as you just spoke, SoftBuy is going to put, $10 billion or $20 billion if Trump gets his way, right, into data centers and into that field. Dubai is spending money left and right into that field, and we are too. So, while it is down, it isn't down and out. Is what I would stress to a lot of these things, where you see these irrational moves to one side or the other. You want to take advantage of them. That's how I look at it. And
Right.
it's played out pretty well in general. Any other European data or anything else you're looking at? So hey, if you have your choice, should we take over Greenland, Panama? What would be your Canada? What's your first choice?
In 2016, when he won, I was sitting at the driver's seat of the largest market maker in the world, and um, we suddenly had to realize that if you're not watching the tweets, if you're not watching these, you're going to get caught and blindsided. So here we come back again. And what we learned in those periods is many of these tweets are misdirection plays or just
Absolutely.
floating ideas out there. Whether we actually, so I always said, you react to the right hand, but watch where the left hand is because that's the one you want to watch. So, do we want Greenland? I don't know. I heard somebody talking about with the ice melting the way it is, maybe a new transit routes will open. So
To the
that's why
Arctic.
we.
Yeah, I saw that. And then they tie in the fact that his new I forget what secretary it was, one of the proposed secretaries came out and said, we only have one icebreaker. We got to order 12 immediately.
Yeah.
And it's a rate. And I do think that what we have there is, listen, and we've seen this. Steve brought this up for months. Trump's big belief is that, resources are what matter, right? He's a huge miner, whether it be gold, diamonds, oil, resources. He gets that natural resources are, the ultimate currency, I guess, right?
And who was ahead of the game on that?
China.
Right?
Oh, they're killing
About
us.
10 years ago, they started this whole thing about the raw materials, but more so those really difficult ones that go into solar panels. I forget what they refer to those materials, rare earth
Rare earth
materials.
materials. Yep. Oh yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean,
No.
they,
Exactly. So I see what they're. Like you said, it becomes tough for a trader. Like yesterday, we were having a great start to the day, and then he came out and went all over the place, and the market just got so scared. They're like, "Oh God, he's going to start world wars. We're going to take on Denmark, and then we're going to go attack Mexico and Canada. This is going to be crazy." And
right.
I think he does. He's one of those guys that thinks that any headline is good headline. Good. No, there's no such thing as bad news. If you're in the news, you're winning.
Right.
So that plays into it also. But yeah, but that's what we got to be set for the next 4 years. I mean, again, I think it's the warnings that I think are important that we do, like like yourself, 40 years of experience trading, as you said, running, an electronic trading desk from Forex. You've seen this stuff play out, and as you said, you guys had to adjust and actually had to look at his tweets, right? If I had told you that 10 years ago that you'd be listening while watching social media to make decisions, what would you have said to me?
Yeah, I would have, how is that possible? Because we control where the markets are moving, and that's not so anymore today. And that's a good thing today, that more and more people, retail, are able to make sound, quick decisions on where to be trading, and it should be available for all. That's why the price discovery is so important,
Absolutely.
to the marketplace. But I would say, underscore a theme that we used to echo on the desk. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Don't get caught on the candlestick, right?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely. And
things
that's the key, is
change.
because everything's electronic and it's going to move more
That's
and
right.
more. It's one of the things where I definitely have a difference of opinion from Steve on, is he thinks eventually zero DTE options will run out of fad. I
I
feel the
lost you there,
opposite.
Howard.
What?
I'm not hearing you. You
Oh,
suddenly went blank on me.
can you hear me now?
There you go. Yep.
Okay, what I was saying is I have a difference of opinion than Steve on that. He feels that zero DTE options are a fad and that they will sort of go the wayside. I think with automated and algorithmic trading, you're going to find that retail traders will have more and more access and sort of a level playing field in that area, and it's only going to keep on going.
I would agree with you. It gives us a good offset to handle and manage risk. My only problem with options is that price making is still not fully transparent to
Absolutely
the
not at
market,
all.
right?
Yeah, no,
You
I'm
have a
with you there. We need those things to come in. Otherwise, like you said, as you know, because you were one of those people, market makers that had that advantage. The retail trader couldn't trade against you when it came to Forex because of, what you had behind you, both in technology, information, and ammunition, right?
Well, absolutely. But I would say, around about 2019, that all changed in the currency markets. Even before then, when they talked about the Mamacita-sans out of Japan, trade
Right.
the retail, trading, the housewives trading the dollar yen in the retail market, in the yen carry trades.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. As that's why I think it's going to continue. I think we'll see more of it. And we see it just in the fact of the way the markets move too. Is just
Yep,
look at the increase in futures trading that you see now from
that's
retail
right.
traders as they found out that that is not covered by the, you know, uh, what do you call it, the daily trading fee. You're not limited
Yep.
to how many trades you can make and all that, the limits that have been set in place, in the stock market. And that's what you're going to see is people, what scares me with it is you don't own anything. You're not the options are, synthetic, let's face it.
Right.
That it's interesting. That's where I get a little nervous. There is, that the new traders. That's why it's a scary area too, because there's a lot of new traders that don't understand that they do go to zero. We always talk about, hey, your stocks won't go to zero, your gold won't go to zero. Well, guess what? Your options on anything can go to zero very
Yep.
quickly.
And I would only highlight to the viewers, have you had an option position on that wow, that's a perfect, I scored on that one. And then you looked at the price and said, wait, that's not really showing me what I should be. I thought I nailed it. Why am I not able to trade out of this and yield the profit I believe I should have?
Absolutely,
That,
liquidity's got to be there. Yeah,
that's
that,
my
that
point.
Great point. I was about to say is I thank you for adding that to it because it's so important. And we talked about this with Dr. Alan Ellman yesterday on our Blue Collar Investor, the president there, who specializes in covered call strategy. And he talked about it. It's also, you have to understand the Greeks. If you don't know what theta is going to do to your position, I can't tell you the amount of times when I was a new trader and I thought as long as I bought, a strike that was up, it would go the right way, and not necessarily if you're not, again, because it goes to zero. So if you aren't all the way there and theta starts catching up, it's a slippery slope down from there, right?
Now, a funny story is I would have my option desk would be just a few rows away, and I'd have a really good position on, and I'd say, "Hey, I'm thinking of flipping out of this now," and they'd look and they'd give me a price back, and I'd be shaking my head, and they'd say, "Uh, decay."
Yeah.
The
Right.
option is decayed a bit, and I'd
Yeah.
be like, "What is this decay?"
Yeah, and why? Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, it really is. And it's not necessarily intuitive for traders. If you're a mathematician, It's almost physics versus, or I guess it's more chemistry, right? It's almost chemistry versus biology.
Right, because it's not math.
Yeah, no, it's not simple math. There is. As soon as you have the words intrinsic and extrinsic involved, that's when you knew that's to me like when we used to joke when my math teachers in high school used to make fun of the science department because they would say, yeah, in science everything's in a vacuum, Well, in a
Right,
vacuum with no outside interference, friction is not an issue or whatever. Well, you know what? In the real world, there's friction, so it is a
right.
problem.
Yep. So
And we
let's
find
watch the
that
dollar.
liquidity being the biggest, and that's the one that I see hit people the most is liquidity. They buy these crazy out of the money calls, and then when it makes a move, they go, "Oh, wait a second, I'm not getting any fills." Yeah, because no one wants to buy your $30 out of the money expiring in 2 week option because it's never going to fill the rest of that $30.
That's right. Yep. And trust me, you go out 2 weeks, you're going to lose most of your value in the next 3 days.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. The logarithmic way that theta works is
Yep.
another part. Any
So
last notes for us here before we take off for the day, Mr. Flanagan?
yeah, let's watch the dollar index here. 109.20. I think if we begin to hold in this 108.80, 109.20, that's going to act as support. I'm looking for the next leg up, and that's going to be, targeting 115. And it's right now getting to the point where people are forced to trade and buy now because they're still not positioned
Correct.
for this dollar index play up. However, we've got Fed minutes out later, most likely should come out on the hawkish side, right?
Yep.
And then Friday, we have the payrolls number. And watch out for a surprise on the downside because that would be just the ingredient needed to create this even increased volatility that we're beginning to see.
Wow. So that's definitely volatility of play we like. Um, especially again when it comes to the option world, be selling into this volatility options, don't
Right.
be buying volatility in options. And
Right.
money moves first, and our man Steve Flanagan gets us that information before anybody else in the market. Thank you so much, Stephen. We will see you again on Friday.
Okay, very good. Looking forward to it.